You see, we often mistake love for performance. For men especially, there's a deeply ingrained belief, whether learned from culture, family, or society, that in order to earn love, you have to do something, win it, prove yourself worthy of it. So naturally, many men approach relationships the same way they approach their careers, with goals, actions, and measurable outcomes. But this is not how women fall in love. A woman doesn't fall in love with your resume. She doesn't open her heart because you fixed her car, booked the perfect vacation, or told her she's beautiful 3 times a day. These things might catch her attention, but they don't build love. Love begins when she feels emotionally safe, not impressed, safe. And here's the nuance. Emotional safety isn't the absence of conflict or discomfort. It's not walking on eggshells to avoid upsetting her. Emotional safety is the presence of stability. It's when a man can hold space for a woman's emotional reality without flinching, withdrawing, or shutting her down. When she cries and you don't try to fix it. When she's angry and you don't make it about you. When she's uncertain and you remain grounded, not reactive. This kind of presence is not performative, it's relational. It tells her, I can be here with all of you, not just when it's pretty or convenient. And that, more than anything, creates the emotional container in which love can form. Think of it like this. A woman's heart is like water. It flows, it moves, it reflects. But it needs a container to take shape. Emotional safety is that container. Without it, her affection will trickle, evaporate, or even flood. With it, her love becomes deep, reflective, powerful. Most men are not taught how to create emotional safety. They are taught to provide security, financial, physical, logistical. But that's not the same. Emotional safety is not about protection from the outside world. It's about how she feels with you. Is she allowed to be messy, to be unsure, to want more from you, and say it out loud without being punished for it? Can she express her disappointment without it collapsing the connection? These are the moments where a woman quietly decides if she can love you, not because she chooses to love you, but because her nervous system relaxes enough for love to emerge. And I want to emphasize this. When a woman feels emotionally safe, she doesn't just trust you, she opens to you. Love is not something she controls, it's a response. It's what rises in the space where her truth is met without judgment. So many men say, I did everything for her and she still left. Yes. Because none of what you did addressed what she really needed to feel seen in her emotional reality, to be safe in your presence, not just provided for in your actions. This is where emotional maturity comes in, because emotional safety requires more than kindness. It requires attunement, the ability to sense what is happening inside the other person without trying to change or control it. It requires containment, not suppression, but the ability to stay calm while holding tension. And most importantly, it requires consistency, not perfection, just presence over time. That's what makes a woman fall in love, the feeling that your presence is strong enough to hold her fully, not only when she's smiling and sweet, but also when she's tangled, triggered, or scared. She doesn't want a savior. She wants a sanctuary. And when she finds that sanctuary in you, quiet, steady, accepting, love isn't something she decides. Love is a story she doesn't decide. It's a moment in time she sees a tame she knows, quiet, steady, accepting. Love isn't something she decides. She wants a sanctuary. She wants a sanction. Love isn't something she decides. She wants a sanction. She doesn't hope. She doesn't say yes. She doesn't think about it. She sinks into it. It's something she experiences, something her body, her heart, and her soul can finally say yes to. Because in the end, emotional safety isn't a technique, it's a way of being. And it's the ground zero of every real, lasting, transformative love story. She doesn't fall in love when you impress her. She falls in love when she feels safe enough to be fully herself in your presence and still be held. We often talk about chemistry as if it's this electric jolt, fireworks, passion, intensity. And yes, that initial spark matters. But what keeps a woman falling deeper into love? It's not the big moments. It's not the vacation to Paris or the dramatic declaration at midnight. It's the micro moments, the subtle, often invisible gestures that say, I see you, I'm with you, and I remember who you are even when you forget. This is where many men get confused. They believe love is built through grand gestures, but for most women, love is accumulated in the ordinary. It grows slowly, not through performance, but through presence. Emotional intimacy isn't created all at once. It's earned through a series of moments that may seem insignificant, but are anything but. A quiet cup of coffee together in the morning where you simply ask, how are you, really? A look across the room at a party that says, I've got you, remembering that she mentioned her grandmother's birthday is coming up, and asking how she's feeling about it. These are not extravagant things, but in the architecture of love, they are the emotional bricks. What we often forget is that women are not just listening to our words. They are listening for tone, timing, context, silence. They are attuned not only to what you say, but to how you show up in the tiny, unrehearsed slivers of life. They notice if you reach for your phone during dinner, or if you pause to help her zip her coat when her hands are full. These things matter, not because they are dramatic, but because they reflect your attunement, your ability to remain emotionally connected to her inner world, even in the mundane. And this attunement is crucial. When a woman begins to feel that her emotional experience matters to you, not just during conflict, but in daily life, she starts to feel safe enough to let her guard down. Love deepens, not in performance, but in pattern. It's the consistent, low-frequency signal of I care, repeated over time, that teaches her nervous system, I can relax with you. I can trust this. It seems simple, inconsistent, and trust this. From a psychological standpoint, these small acts build what we call secure attachment. When a partner consistently responds in warm, validating ways, the emotional bond strengthens. It doesn't require intensity. It requires reliability. A woman may fall in love through excitement, but she stays in love through resonance, the feeling that you feel her even when she says nothing. There's a kind of emotional music that plays in good relationships. And if you're paying attention, you start to hear it. You learn her rhythms, what makes her anxious, what calms her down, what lights her up. And you respond, not by fixing, not by overcompensating, but simply by being tuned in. These are the moments that shape her experience of love. Now here's the truth most men don't hear enough. You don't need to be extraordinary to make her fall in love. You just need to be consistently present in ordinary ways. That's the paradox. The more you chase novelty or impressiveness, the more you overlook the actual pathway to emotional intimacy. The more you drop into the moment and just be with her, the more space she has to fall for you. And remember, for a woman to fall in love, she needs to feel emotionally met, not just intellectually understood. She needs to feel that her joy, her sadness, her confusion, all of it can land somewhere. So when you see something beautiful and passionate can land somewhere inside of a woman, that there's a relational field strong enough to hold her unspoken parts. And that field is cultivated not by doing more, but by noticing more. You don't need to make her feel like a queen. You need to make her feel real and still cherished in that realness. Because in the end, love isn't built in the peak moments. It's built in the pauses, the glance, the quiet, the way you reach for her hand, not when she's glowing, but when she's unraveled. She falls in love, not through the extraordinary things you do, but through the ordinary moments you choose not to overlook. We hear the word leadership and immediately think of dominance, control, direction, strategy. But in the context of love, leadership takes on a very different tone. It's not about commanding her attention or taking charge of her emotions. It's about offering a kind of grounded steadiness, a relational strength that gives her space to feel, to move, to come undone, without the relationship falling apart. This is what I call emotional leadership. And it's not soft, it's not passive. In fact, it requires more courage than almost anything else in the emotional realm. Because while many men are taught to lead with certainty, with confidence, emotional leadership requires you to lead with presence, especially when you have no control over the outcome. A woman falls in love not with the man who controls the room, but with the man who can remain centered when her world feels chaotic, when she's emotionally activated, hurt, disappointed, overwhelmed. What she needs is not a solution. She needs a witness. She needs to feel that her emotions can exist in the presence of your calm, that she won't be punished for her expression, nor will she have to tone herself down to keep the peace. Most men are not taught this kind of leadership. They're taught to fix or worse, to retreat when the emotional landscape becomes too intense. But here's the truth. When you withdraw or go silent in the face of her emotion, she doesn't feel peace. She feels abandonment, because what she's looking for in that moment is not a solution. She's looking for containment, the kind of emotional maturity that says, your feelings don't scare me. You don't have to hide them. I'm not going anywhere. This is emotional leadership. And it's not about perfection. It's not about always knowing what to say. It's about staying in it with her, grounded, stable, curious. It's about regulating your own nervous system so she doesn't have to carry the weight of both of your emotions. And when a woman feels that from you, when she feels that you are not easily shaken, that you can hold both her joy and her pain, she relaxes. And love, real love, becomes possible. If you bought my love philosophically, this mirrors the ancient idea of the masculine as the container and the feminine as the flow, not in a rigid binary sense, but in a psychological sense. The feminine in all of us is emotional, intuitive, unpredictable, and the masculine, when it's mature, brings structure, not to control, but to hold, to allow the full range of emotion without collapsing. So when you show up in your emotional leadership, you offer her the safety to stop managing the relationship. You free her from the burden of emotional responsibility that so many women are conditioned to carry. And in doing so, you give her permission to rest, to soften, to trust. That's when love deepens. But if you react defensively, if you try to fix her instead of feel her, or if you disappear in the moments when she's testing the strength of the bond, she won't feel love. She'll feel alone. Because true love, for her, is not just pleasure. It's the absence of fear, the assurance that when her emotions are big, you won't get small. This doesn't mean suppressing your own feelings. Emotional leadership is not emotional suppression. In fact, it's the opposite. It's emotional mastery, the ability to feel deeply while remaining connected to your values, your presence, your integrity. That's what makes a woman trust you. And when trust builds, love follows. She doesn't want a man who dominates the relationship. She wants a man who can anchor it, not by overpowering her emotions, but by offering her something stronger than control. Stability. Because in the end, a woman doesn't fall in love with the loudest man in the room. She falls in love with the one who can sit with her silence, stand through her storm, and still say, without words, I'm here, I'm not leaving. There is this persistent idea in dating culture that women want to be chased, that the thrill of pursuit is what draws her in. But this misunderstanding leads to a kind of performance-based masculinity, one where men are constantly trying to win, convince, or impress. And here's the paradox. The more you chase, the less space you give her to choose you. And real love doesn't come from pursuit. It comes from resonance, from recognition, from being chosen, not hunted. A woman doesn't fall in love because you're relentless. She falls in love because you're clear, because there's a kind of intentionality in how you hold yourself with her. You're not trying to prove your worth. You're standing in it. There's a quiet power in that, a confidence that doesn't beg, doesn't pressure, doesn't chase. It simply says, I know what I want and I see you. When a woman feels chosen, not in a possessive or transactional way, but in a deliberate and conscious way, it awakens something very different in her. She's not responding to pursuit, she's responding to presence. To the man who sees her not as a conquest or a project, but as a whole person. And that changes everything. We often confuse desire with urgency. We think showing someone how badly we want them will make them feel special. But in truth, what many women respond to is not intensity, but clarity. She wants to feel wanted, yes, but more than that, she wants to feel understood. She wants to know you're not chasing the fantasy of her. You're choosing the reality of her. All of her. Her mind, her fears, her flaws, her history. And when she feels that, something inside her opens. This is where we move into deeper psychological ground, because love isn't just an emotional experience. It's an existential one. To be chosen by someone deeply and clearly touches something primal. It soothes the part of her that fears being too much or not enough. It tells her, I see your complexity and I want you anyway. That kind of recognition can't be manufactured through pursuit. It must come from a man who is not afraid to slow down, to see her, and then clearly, calmly, courageously stand in his desire for her. This clarity requires self-possession. It means you're not choosing her to fill a void, to fix a wound, or to validate your worth. You're choosing her from a place of fullness, from a place of knowing who you are and what you're available for. And that distinction is everything. And that distinction is everything. Because when a woman feels that you are not trying to possess her, but rather invite her into something meaningful without pressure, without control, without the performance of pursuit, she starts to trust you. And from that trust, love emerges. She begins to open, not because she's been convinced, but because she feels safe to choose you back. That's the difference. Chasing places all the focus on your effort. Choosing creates space for mutual recognition, for reciprocity, for something far more sacred than seduction, connection. So if you're wondering why she pulls away when you lean in harder, consider this. Maybe she doesn't want to be pursued. Maybe she wants to be seen, not just desired for her beauty or her softness, but acknowledged for her wholeness. And maybe What she's really waiting for is not the man who runs the fastest after her, but the man who can stand still, meet her eyes, and say, I choose you, not out of desperation, but out of devotion. Because in the end, love doesn't thrive in the chase. It thrives in the space where two people can meet in truth and choose one another freely. She doesn't fall in love because you chased her. She falls in love when she feels free to choose you, and when you have the courage to choose her first, without needing to chase at all.